This is part 2 of how I brought a Prusa Mini back to life, and this video is sponsored by Prusa Research. To give you a quick recap, this printer was bound for the trash after it got dropped accidentally at my university, but I didn't want to see it go to waste, so I reached out to Prusa to see if they'd send me the parts that I needed to fix it, and they said yes. After replacing everything in part 1, I was pretty pleased to see that everything looked great except for the fact that I discovered there was one more problem. The top left corner of the bed got super bent out of shape during that drop, so the Y-axis gantry needed to be replaced. Luckily, Prusa was kind enough to send me that part as well, so let's replace it. You can see that on the left here, I've got the instructions pulled up for how to assemble the Y-axis of this printer. That's because once I remove everything from this existing Y-axis, it's gonna be like I'm building it from scratch. So these instructions are gonna be super useful as I'm putting back together this assembly. After removing the screws, the spacers, and the little plastic part that holds the belt in place, it was time to remove the bearings. Since this printer has a couple hundred hours under its belt, I decided to give these a bit of a clean before reinserting them into the new Y-axis gantry. After taking everything off of the Y-axis gantry, we could see that that bend was pretty significant. So it was time to open up the new Y-axis gantry and get to assembling. Like I mentioned earlier, it was really useful to have Prusa's instructions for this printer pulled up as I was working on it. I've built a Prusa Mini before, but it was good to get a refresher on how to assemble this part since it had been a little while. And this is one of my favorite things about working with Prusa printers. You guys have seen me work on a couple of printers on this channel before, and you may know that I've gotten pretty frustrated by a lack of documentation and some of these 3D printing companies just not designing their printers to be very easily worked on. Prusa excels in both of these categories. I absolutely love reading through their instructions and reading the comments under them, as well as actually putting these machines together. It's a lot of fun. Here you can see me using Prusa's belt tensioner application to make sure that the tension of this belt is correct, and it looks like it is. At this point, I am so close to being done. All I have to do is screw back on the magnetic heat plate and then make sure that I use the correct tightening pattern to make sure that this bed is truly level when I tighten it up. Cleaning off the bed with a little isopropyl alcohol and snapping back on the heat plate, it was time to run the bed calibration to make sure that everything was working as it should. And after finishing up this calibration, it was clear that everything was working just as it should. The printer was fixed. Naturally, it was time to print a benchy to make sure that everything was working in tip-top shape, and it turned out amazing. This project was so much fun, and I am so thankful to Prusa Research for sponsoring my channel with this project. If you want to get a Prusa Mini of your own, check out my affiliate link in the comments, and as always, let me know what you guys think.